This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. No choice. Big on mandate. Get it on, and welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. That's Mark Garrigus over there.
How are you, Mr. Carolla?
Maskless.
Yes, I have no mask on. Although I do, I'm feeling bad. I had my Armo Artsock mask, but I forgot to bring it. So I've got just the black. This is me just in solidarity with the Armos and Artsock. So we were down there yesterday, by the way. I sent Gary a picture. Gary, do you have a picture? Let's see if Adam can recognize who I was with.
Where's down there?
Well, in the back of the back of the engine company, it abuts to on Wilshire. And that is the headquarters for a place called Mercury Public Affairs, which is a PR firm that has many well-known Los Angeles and California politicians working for them. And in checking the registration with the State Department, we found out, lo and behold, that Mercury Public Affairs has been on Turkey's payroll and on a number of other payrolls. And and by the way, for those who don't know, Artsakh is the traditional Armenian annexation to Armenia that is a republic that we're trying to get recognized. Azerbaijan, at the behest of Turkey, is now trying to complete the genocide. So there was a protest on Wilshire. Mm-hmm. And I will admit to going out there a little bit and trying to encourage them to ramp up the protest. Yeah, there I am. They were on the curb, and I said, I've learned one thing from Black Lives Matter. Could you recognize the guy who I've got my arm around this?
I have no idea. He's
Ken Delanian.
He's diminutive.
Yeah. You might recognize him with his clothes off in Borat 1. He was the Armo who wrestled Borat.
Oh, he's down 144 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, he is probably because he's not in Borat 2. So we were over there yesterday.
That guy is 100 pounds lighter than he was in Borat.
He could be. He looks very slim. Either that or I'm like a large guy. So I encourage them, stop the sidewalk. Let's get into the street. Mm-hmm. And by the way, LAPD was very helpful.
Really?
Yeah. They put the patrol cars and blocked off at Wilshire and Fig. We blocked off the other end in front of Mercury. And I'm happy to report, there was just a zillion Armo compatriots out there. I'm happy to report this morning, first thing, Mercury Public Affairs filed a withdrawal of their FARA registration representing the Embassy of Turkey.
Who would you like to see as the president strictly on foreign affairs vis-a-vis Turkey and Armenia?
Let me tell you what the problem is. So I can piss off both sides of the aisle. When he was a state senator running for president, Barack Obama, said, we've got to call it a genocide. We got to call it a genocide. He appointed Samantha Powers as his representative to the UN, who had written extensively about the genocide. Guess what happened when he got into office?
Did not declare it
genocide. Right. Said it was Medziergen, which is the Armenian term. Biden has been very, very strident about the fact that it was a genocide. He's been honored by the Armenian National Committee. He's been great on it. And Trump just today and last week talked about Armenians. He said, very fine people. They're good business people. And I said, I got it. Tax. Yeah. The tax avoidance. Okay. That's that was Trump. But he gave two shout outs within the last week. Armenians, very good business people. It's I'm sure somebody will find that racist. But Trump, when Turkey pulled their last stunt in Syria, both houses of Congress finally broke the logjam after 30, 40 years and passed the genocide resolutions. The White House would not sign on to it.
Why not?
So Turkey has got an amazing influence over the State Department. They always say we can't do it now. It's a delicate time. We can't do it now. It's a delicate time. But when Congress passed the genocide resolution, by the way, which they had already done in 79, I think in 82. Turkey always threatens the same thing. We're going to recall our ambassador. Okay, who gives a shit? We're not going to let you use our base at Ursulik, which is the NATO base. Well, like, who gives a shit? Then just go and put it in Armenia. But the thing about Armenia, which never ceases to amaze me, we've got the greatest diaspora here. You're right here as we're recording this. We're in the greatest concentration of Armos outside of Yerevan, right?
Yeah.
Glendale.
I don't know if I call it great, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, come on. You appropriated two-thirds of the flag for your Carolla digital shirt. You got red and blue.
I'm sorry. Most amount of Armenians. Right.
Right. Oh, so you're going to go quantity as opposed to quality? You're going to be that
You
guy?
said great. I heard Armenian, and I got confused.
And that spun you around.
But I understand your wordsmith.
This is what I don't understand. It's the oldest Christian nation, 1,700 years, over 1,700 years. We're surrounded and landlocked. We got Iran on one side. We got Azerbaijan, which is another Islamist terrorist state. We got Turkey on the other side. So you're surrounded by all of these basically ISIS-loving countries, and you've got this Christian democracy. And crazily enough, we kind of rely on Turkey. I mean, not Turkey, on Russia, because Russia has this kind of weird relationship. Putin and Hitler wannabe Erdogan have this weird relationship over influence in that area in the Caucasus. And Armenia's caught in between. I mean, we need to have the same kind of narrative that Israel does with evangelicals here in America, because America should be supporting Armenia. It is strategic, and by the way, Erdogan is a madman, and so it's just an awful thing. And Azerbaijan is using the pandemic and the election to try to finish off the genocide once again. That's what's happening.
Well, I
want to hear your reaction to it as an Odar.
And
you know what an Odar is?
Yes, it's a
goyim.
It's a goyim. Sorry, I was trying to pull up that word. Just from the cheap seats for the average goyim, Odar. Sorry,
sounds like odor. Sounds like odor.
We look at everyone in that region of the country of the world as nuts. Mm-hmm. That's just the way we look at it. And then there's Russia, who are the last crazy white people. They're literally the last of the insane white people are the Russians. And then there's everyone else from that region. And if you turn on, it's funny, if you watch Saturday Night Live and you turn on an episode from 1977 and they go to the news, they'll say trouble in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Because there's always trouble in the Middle East.
To some degree, it's interesting because we were watching the debate. I assume you watched the debate.
Yeah, I have a clip to play at some point.
Good. And does it involve oil?
No, it involves COVID.
Oh, okay, good. I will hit it. Oil drives so much of it, and oil drives the Middle East. Oil drives so many of these, and fossil fuel drives so many political international affairs. I mean, Azerbaijan. Why does Azerbaijan have some kind of strategic importance? It's because there's oil. I mean, that's
right.
That's the reality of it. There's oil interests there. American company corporations and Russian corporations and everybody's there. And then you got Iran, who's upset that I think they had 71 missiles landed over their border the other day. And you've got Azerbaijan just bombing civilian areas and talking about finishing off the Armenian problem. For Armenians, it's an existential issue because I'm 2 generations removed from the genocide. But remember my grandmother, especially my paternal grandmother, talking about it and talking about escaping from the orphanage as a 6 or 8 year old. Can you imagine 6 or 8 Baritsa running across the desert, escaping an orphanage, somehow making it to America, having my dad at either 14 or 15, we don't know what age, And then when you hear people bitching and moaning about their
seasonal
kids,
allergies,
yeah, it's like, hello,
I know.
My paternal grandmother made it over here, was pregnant. Her husband promptly died during the Depression. She's raising my dad and my aunt, and she somehow made it.
My grandfather, who's not, I don't share blood with, but it's the only grandfather I ever knew. So I didn't know either one of my biological grandfathers, but Laszlo Gorog from Hungary, he raised me essentially, and he fled Holocaust, Hungary, and his sister and many family members left behind. So they had to deal with that Holocaust.
It's funny we share that because my Baritza later remarried. My grandmother later remarried Artem, and he's the grandfather that I knew. In fact, there's a picture of me trying to grab his cigarette out of his hand at a tender age, and this guy, the guys who escaped the genocide had such great insight into America. I mean, I remember him talking about capitalism, and he would tell me about capitalism, and I'm one of my 6 or 7 or something like that. He's talking about you got to have a recession or a depression every once in a while, and I'd say, why? He'd say, it's just the way the system is set up. You just got to kind of shake it out every once in a while. He understood it, and they had kind of their attitude about life was, I escaped my whole family getting wiped out, and I'm over here, and I love this country, and blah, blah, blah. So let's not worry too much about anything that's really happening here. I'm not really concerned about whatever problem you've got.
Well, the clip I'll play, and then we got a Scott Peterson death penalty update. We got Derrick Chauvin, the officer, third degree dismissed. We have that to get into. But since we're just sort of talking about the debate, what I do is I look at a debate or I look at any of these events, and I don't really go after the big stuff or the low-hanging fruit or the gaffes. It's more of a nuance thing. And for me, it was the moderator, who I thought did a good job, but she showed her hand at some point because she was clearly in the Democratic panic party as it pertains to COVID-19, because Trump was sort of saying young people are fine, they get it, they're 99.9 of them are okay, and then she made a comment at the end of it, and it's not really her job to make a comment at the end of the thing, and it was completely unnecessary and redundant, but it was sort of, here's what it was like.
Do you have the clip?
I'll show it to you. I was telling Dr. Drew, it was like if you're sitting next to your wife and you're out to dinner with a couple, and you start into your story about being all Central Valley first team in football back in the high school days, and your wife goes, JV, not varsity. Well, she's kind of showing her hand a little bit. They don't need that information. She didn't need to say anything, but that means she's not a fan.
Right. And it's like a little, what I call forearm sugar.
A little jab. Yeah. All right, so we'll listen to the clip, but it's really about what the moderator, Kristen Welker, says at the end.
Over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, this is dangerous. And you catch it. And, I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals. And now I recovered. 99.9 of young people recover. 99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
And, of course, the CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it.
That's what he just said, bitch, but he said it didn't hurt anybody. You don't have to fucking rebut that comment. He said 99% of people recover. Of course, they can get sick. Yes, they can, but I know exactly where you're at now, sweetheart. I know exactly, because that was redundant. He didn't say any. He said you can get sick, you can get it. But 99% of the people, it doesn't hurt, young people. And then she had to go into her scared CNN panic mode and say, of course, CDC says that young people can get sick.
Well, there's
So she showed her hand.
Well, there's something about fact checking that I've seen. CNN's got a fact checker. Everybody now wants to do a fact checker. And I don't know that things are as clear for fact checking. You can say, I think you can push back or you can ask. I mean, but this idea that somehow you've seized the moral high ground on the truth gives me some pause, that there's got to be and I don't know that it's necessarily this example or any example. The idea of fact checking, that these are the facts, gives me a lot of pause.
Well, she's a moderator, and she didn't need to chime in there and explain that kids could get sick. First off, every human being on the motherfucking planet knows kids can get sick. What we're saying is it's relatively so infinitesimally small for kids that we should reopen schools.
Right.
We're not saying kids can't get sick.
The point is, if you're gonna kind of push back on it, the point is that kids can get others sick because they're asymptomatic for the most part, and even though there is a small percentage that can. So that's what you have to do, which is protect the vulnerable. There is a middle ground between the two positions, but it never gets articulated because, once again, everybody always says, I've got the facts, whether it's left or right. You know what? I don't know that you necessarily do have the facts. I think there's a little bit of gray and nuance, and people just don't want to ever recognize that.
Yeah, I agree. And then we pick up cause celebs, like the mask is the cause celeb. So you just sort of go out and ring that bell. So Scott Peterson, death penalty, very recent, hot off the press news.
Hot off the press. I just saw today. In fact, I saw something where this shows you just how absurd. This has got to be. Goes back to your theory about prosecutors having no budget, mind you.
Or all the budget.
or an unlimited budget. The old George Allen, who was the coach of the Washington Redskins, and Edward Bennett Williams famously said, I gave him a blank check and he's already exceeded it. The Gavin Newsom, your friend, has instituted a moratorium on the death penalty in California. Okay? So there are no executions. So the California Supreme Court unanimously reverses the death penalty in Scott Peterson. So what is the Stanislaus?
Wait a minute. Is it for moral reasons or because the gas chamber kills the ozone because of the gas, and because our electric grid is so bad we can't put them in an electric chair anymar? Is it for those reasons or the moral reasons?
Maybe we eliminated it because a gas chamber is like gas cars.
Did
you ever think of that?
Okay. 2035.
Yeah. So explain to me how, if there's a moratorium on the death penalty, and the California Supreme Court unanimously reverses the death penalty, yet apparently Stanislaus County is rolling in dough because they're gearing up to retry the penalty phase. Mind you, at the same time that the California Supreme Court also unanimously issued an order to show cause on why they shouldn't grant a new trial. So the squad, the prosecutorial squad, is going to retry the death penalty in a state that's got a moratorium on the death penalty when the conviction itself, which is the predicate for the death penalty, is also in question. If that doesn't show you just how 5150 the prosecutorial agency is, I don't know what does. I mean, it's beyond belief.
This is the problem with government when it gets too big and it gets into overreach, and it also gets into that no budget or all budget or no boundaries on anything. It always reminds me 6 months ago when the mayor of Oakland, the female mayor of Oakland, was after having the loops explained on the tree in the park that was set up by a black man for exercise, she acknowledged that and said, we're moving ahead with an investigation on hate crimes. We're going to get the feds involved. It's like, you just acknowledged that this was a loop. I mean, I passed a fire station in Malibu a week ago, and they had their extension cords that kind of hang down from the front of the fire station, and they don't want to leave them on the ground because I think they're hosing off the whatever. And it was looped, but it looked like a noose hanging from the fire station. Do we need to investigate everything with a bend in it? So she's allocating resources to she literally said, I'm moving forward anyway. And now, is that what you want your government doing? And then
which
why
is
aren't
a
they
perfect
moving?
example. No matter which side of the aisle you're on, it is this institutional insanity. Yeah. I mean, how do you justify either one of those positions? I don't care if you're left, right, or in between. How do you justify either one?
It's that. Well, see, in their world, they have an infinite amount of time and money. In my world, they don't, because they have homeless people flopped out everywhere, and the kids are out of school, and there's drug use, and there's garbage, and there's graffiti. So that is where I want you to focus your attention.
Which, by the way, brings us full circle to the Armo protest. I noticed that there were no homeless out there yesterday when the Armos took over Wilshire in front of Mercury Public Affairs. It was,
really?
Yeah.
They clean it up.
They clean it up. In fact, I'm glad that Mercury did that, because I was thinking that we were going to I was going to take a page from Black Lives Matter, and we were just going to take over the street and do a little Camp Hyaston right there on Wilshire Boulevard. Wouldn't you have loved that?
Yeah.
I could have had you come
I love
do
it when people block traffic in the name of something. Hey, Gary.
It's one of your favorite idiosyncrasies. Although I've never understood going onto the freeway. To me, I've known too many guys who've been clipped on the freeway. You know what I mean? That's different. Wilshire Boulevard, you never get going that fast anyway.
You have the mayor's quote. Sorry, Gary.
Yeah, sure. I can read it to you here.
Please.
It was Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf said officials must, quote, start with the assumption that these are hate crimes, unquote. However, the mayor and Nichols Williams, the city's director of Parks and Recreation, also said it doesn't matter whether the ropes were meant to send a racist message. Quote, intentions don't matter when it comes to terrorizing the public, Schaaf said. It's incumbent on all of us to know the actual history of racial violence, of terrorism that a noose represents, and that we as a city must remove these terrorizing symbols from public view.
This sounds like a full retarded person. That sounds like a retard. It doesn't matter what the symbolism is.
Well, I was more worried about it doesn't matter what the intention was.
Well, then every loop is, every pull cord, everything that's in the shape of a loop.
That statement was, to be entirely
when was
clear,
that?
That was in June, and that was after the gentleman who had hung the swing set stuff came out and said what they were for and that they were not.
She's fucking retarded. I can't believe they have people like that run cities. She's an imbecile. It's insane. She's an insane person. All right.
Wait, you did an interview with somebody that fascinated me within the last 3 days, and I meant to ask you about it, and now I've got a mental block. Somebody that was out of left field.
Oh, Ravi Patel, probably.
Yeah.
Was it Ravi Patel?
I think so.
They had a fascinating conversation where Ravi was really sort of interviewing Adam. That was a super interesting. We're gonna have him back.
How did that come about?
He's promoting a documentary about his family, and he just came on to promote it. And he started interviewing Adam and asking Adam about his life and his childhood. And they had a very interesting conversation. And we're in the works of setting up another one, a one-on-one this time. That's going to be even better.
I told him, come in here. I'll lay down on the sofa, and I'll let it all hang out.
Why all of a sudden did you open up?
People have they misread me a little bit, which is, if you want to ask me questions, about my personal life or my past or my childhood, emotional states, history in that world of a psychological nature, I will answer every time.
I know. There's no filter.
People don't ask me that, but if you do, I shall give you an answer.
How did it transpire, though? Just because it was a guest who was promoting the documentary?
He was undergoing that journey himself. I think he was involved with that journey. His project was involved with that journey. So
was there a documentary affinity?
Adam went out on a limb and did something he almost never does and talked about his childhood. And then Robbie started asking questions about that.
Yeah, I almost never talk about that. Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for my parents.
Oh, my God.
So
we're
going to do it again.
Okay.
Yes.
I think you should. I think you should. Have you talked to Drew in the last whatever? Where is Drew at with the current election status? Because I haven't spoken to him recently.
Drew, I talked to Drew an hour ago, probably. He's in or 2 hours ago. He's in New York. He's pretty disgusted by the state of this America.
But is he like me? Does he think New York has got it better than L.A. right now?
He's there quarantining for like Teen Mom or something like that. He seems to think, New York is better than L.A. And he's pretty much disgusted at all the COVID-19 business.
What's his? Because I haven't had a recent download from him. I love to pick his brain periodically. He had predicted to me that we would be here mid-October, as did my other buddy, the cardiac surgeon, had also predicted it as well. But what does he say? His
take on it overall is, I don't know where this thing is going. It doesn't seem to be going away, but we have much better therapeutics for it, and we know how to handle it better if you go to the hospital. So I'm speaking for him. I don't think he thinks it's going away. He just thinks that if, in fact, you do get it, you can go get it taken care of and get back to your life.
If Chris Christie can come out from under this in 7 days and still be upright, vertical, and talking, and talking about he was wrong about the mask, so he obviously didn't want to go through it. But if he can do it, then the therapeutics have to be much better.
All right, you want to talk Derrick Chauvin?
Yeah. So, Gary, you want to give the update on that, the third degree versus the second?
Right. So the judge dismissed the third degree. Minnesota is one of the only jurisdictions in the country. I think there's only 3 in total that have third degree. So the judge has since dismissed third degree but left second degree on it.
Which is fascinating because, in the nomenclature, why are you giving me the third degree? Always the third degree is always the most serious. But in that state, apparently third degree means you have to do something that is threatening to others. And
I can read it to you here if you'd like. The unlawful killing of a human being when perpetrated without any design to effect death by a person engaged in the perpetration of or attempt to perpetrate any felony other than that. So my reading leads me to an understanding that a classic application of this law would be you get drunk, you kill a pedestrian. You weren't intending to kill the person, but because of the felony of getting drunk and driving, you caused that person's death.
Gary is pretty good at this because that's exactly where my brain was going, Gary. I mean,
so why
you want to study the law, pull a little Kimmy K and join the office and take the bar in 18 months? You can apprentice in California. You can still do it.
Let's do it.
Why is it removed in this case?
Because the act would have been the kneeling on the neck or the back, and that wouldn't have been threatening to anybody else. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Gary, I believe that originally the first charge was third degree, and then when Keith Ellison, who's the attorney general, came in, he recognized, give him his due, he recognized third degree wasn't going to fly, so he added the second degree, I'm guessing with the expectation that some judge would come along and dismiss the third degree.
If you're Chauvin's attorney, how do you feel about this?
I'm still not happy because I want a severance, probably. It's an interesting...
What do you mean you want a severance?
Severance means... As of right now, the cops are all going to be tried together. There's a motion to sever, which is to separate them, to have their trials separately. Because I believe one of the cops has already telegraphed in his motion what their defense is going to be is, I was protecting a scene. I was looking at the perimeter. My focus was not on what was happening behind me. And therefore, I can't be an accomplice to something I wasn't even aware of. My intent, my focus was on what was happening, crowd control, blah, blah, blah. So if that's the case, and you're Chauvin, you probably don't want that guy tried with you, because if that guy's tried with you, the focus is going to be on, look, he didn't do anything. If he testifies, that guy's going to get up, most probably will testify, that he didn't know what Chauvin was going to do, and that makes Chauvin look even worse.
I think they're going to have a hard time with the other 2 or 3 cops.
It's a very difficult case for the prosecution, because if you take a look at the tape, that guy's attention was at the crowd. One of the guys was. You can see his attention. Gary may have it, but you can see where his attention is, and they're always going to testify to that. And by the way, the cops are experienced witnesses, and that's what's so dangerous about cases involving where you try to prosecute cops. Cops know how to testify.
Also, one guy was, I don't know, a real rookie, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly.
So the most
might have been 2. I think that I'll look it up, but there were a couple that were under 7 days on the force.
Yeah, the most senior guy on the site was Chauvin, right?
Correct.
So they're gonna argue that he was pulling rank on them. I
haven't been in the weeds on this, but I still think that a fascinating aspect to this is if Chauvin had any kind of a relationship with George Floyd. Because apparently, remember that whole story, and it just hasn't. I haven't seen a whole lot of reporting done on that. I mean, it's Gary's guy.
I'm sorry, I've got the answer on the thing we were just talking about. The Chauvin was the most tenured. Next was Tao Thao, the Asian gentleman. He'd been on the force since 2008. Both J. Alexander Kung and Thomas Lang were in their first week on the force.
First week.
Yeah. Good luck with the first week. The 2 first week guys, they're not going to be able to do anything with those guys.
What about, Gary, what about the both security guards at the nightclub? That to me, that's a fascinating
that was
subtext.
Absolutely a thing, and they apparently had scuffles before over George Floyd not being a fan of how Chauvin treated customers. He was apparently Chauvin was physical in a manner that Floyd thought was unnecessary more than once.
Yeah, that's a very. My guess is you're going to find that takes some center stage unless they motion and limine that out, which means file a motion with this judge to say we don't want to get into this because it's too prejudicial or more prejudicial than probative. But it sure strikes me at first glance if they've got a witness to it. And I think, as I remember, the general manager or the owner is somebody, the female is a witness to it. That could potentially be compelling. But then again, whenever you're prosecuting law enforcement, the usual rules of criminal defense go out the window, because law enforcement tends to get a real presumption of innocence. Law enforcement tends to get some calls that you normally wouldn't get from.
I will.
What are you going to?
I'm going to tease this because, and we'll just keep going down this George Floyd path. There's a toxicology, there's fentanyl. They have this thing where it's like 3 times the amount that could kill somebody. I don't know how they figure. I don't know how they figure that out.
Because I want to talk about that too.
And they were trying to put him in the car, and he was saying he couldn't breathe when they're trying to put him in the car. That's why he didn't want to get in the car. He was having an episode. I don't mean an episode, but it was drug-induced something. So the problem with the breathing pre-knee on the neck is going to help Chauvin's side, but I want to know what you think about it. First, I'll tell you guys about Madison Reed. So Madison Reed's been around for a while. They make top-shelf hair coloring. They made it for women for a long time, and then they said, well, what about the fellas? Why don't we go with Madison Reed Mister? So you want a little more pepper and a little less salt? Madison Reed Mister. Gray blending, natural color for your hair and for your beard. You can see the before and after pictures on their website. They look great. No shoe polish look. Maybe you just want a little more pepper and a little less salt. Like I said, Madison Reed Mister makes it easy. Get the color match on the website. Quick and easy. Put a little dollop in your hand, rub it through your hair, put the activator on, shampoo, let it sit for 10 minutes, then shampoo, and you're on your way. It is natural looking. Madison Reed Mister. Right, Gary?
That's absolutely right. Go to MadisonReedMr.com. That's MadisonReedMR.com and use code Adam10 for 10% off plus free shipping on your first box. Again, that's code Adam10. Now, guys, we're getting into the exact details of the fentanyl. He had 11 nanograms per milliliter, but I'm not exactly sure what that means yet. I'll figure it out. But I also wonder, Mark, George Floyd tested positive for COVID-19 as well. He did? He had SARS-CoV-2 in his system. So will that play into his system was contributing to his death as well? Is that?
They had I believe what they were doing is you can challenge, in most jurisdictions, you can challenge.
Wait, hold on. Gary, everyone who dies has COVID in their system, I've now realized. Is it that, or did he actually have it? Because every
I think I'd read before where he had it.
Wow.
No,
yeah,
the medical examiner's report I'm reading says he had it.
So I believe in most jurisdictions you can challenge a probable cause finding. California, for instance, it would be under what's called Section 995. And you can do that either on a indictment or a probable cause finding in a preliminary hearing. You can do the same there. I believe that's what the judge was ruling on yesterday when we're taping this. I believe that they challenged based on the fentanyl and the COVID. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure about the COVID, but I know on fentanyl. And I believe the judge found for purposes, mind you, for probable cause purposes, it's basically, I used to have this joke that I know that probable cause has been diminished to the point of, is my client breathing? I mean, but basically probable cause is not a beyond a reasonable doubt standard. Probable cause is, you got a strong suspicion that something is amiss, basically, and it's connected to the particular defendant. I believe the judge ruled yesterday that you could find that the knee on the back and the neck was a substantial factor. That's another legal term, substantial factor. That's both in civil and criminal. And if it's a substantial factor, then that was enough to let it go to a jury, to have a jury decide whether it was the substantial factor beyond a reasonable doubt.
So when is this going to trial, and what are your predictions? My predictions are nothing for the other officers there.
I think this could be, it's interesting. What are there, Gary? 4 defendants?
Yes, and the next court date is March 8th.
Right, and I figured they'd put it off in the spring. Most jurisdictions are setting trials in, I had a civil case just set in 2022.
Wow.
I've had a criminal case today that was just kicked over. Most trials are just getting kicked over to 2021 or 2022 because how are you going to do this? I mean, I'm not going to try a case. I refuse to try a case where the witnesses or the jurors are masked. How am I going to select a jury? I've got 30 seconds, 45 seconds to determine somebody. I can't look at facial expressions. How am I going to cross-examine a witness on a witness stand? I mean, one of the reasons I had that eye surgery done is because I started to not be able to see a witness's reactions. How can you cross-examine if you can't see their reactions? How do you know how to pick a juror when you're asking them the questions to sense whether or not they're telling the truth or not? So it's a real problem in the criminal justice system, more so than civil. Civil, as I always say, you're just fighting over other people's money, OPM, as opposed to OPP. Mm-hmm. So OPM, other people's money, there's a slightly different, lesser standard. But criminal, where somebody's liberty's at stake, there's a real problem with retooling the system, because remember, for years the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled, and all the other courts have ruled, you can't put, for instance, in cases involving children, they talked about, there was this idea, some judges had fashioned the idea of not having them have to face their accuser, put them behind a screen or do this or that. That's all those were ruled to violate the Confrontation Clause. So if you're going to have somebody masked, or you're going to have them behind plexiglass, or if I'm sitting next to my client who's in custody in a jail that is rampant with COVID, I'm going to sit next to this guy. I'm going to be worried about my health when I'm supposed to be zealously defending a client and no concern for myself. So there's all kinds of problems here. I have counseled lawyers that they should not just go along to get along to do a trial. They ought to stand up and try to fight these things and push back against them.
All right. What other stories are in the news? I can bring up a topic or two if there's nothing at the tip of your tongue.
I can button this topic up, by the way, by saying that apparently a medical examiner was quoted as saying that the amount of fentanyl and methamphetamine in his system, were he to be found dead at home with no apparent foul play, would be considered an overdose.
And
I can see that.
And also, back then at least, COVID was a real respiratory situation too.
Right. So I really wonder if that, Mark, if you were defending Chauvin, would that play into, well, he was already compromised, and if this was done to a citizen who was healthy, maybe we wouldn't have had this tragedy.
Yeah, and then you've got this, there's the old expression, the eggshell theory. You find your plaintiff, at least in the civil context, the way you find them, and that's been imported in most jurisdictions to a criminal as well, criminal cases as well. But interestingly, I'm not leaving this alone yet, even though you were moving on.
No,
there's 4 defendants here. And what easily springs to mind for me, being in L.A., is the 4 defendants in Rodney King. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, the 4 defendants in Rodney King were originally acquitted in Simi Valley. Mm-hmm. Then they were prosecuted by the feds because the argument is, and the law is, that that's not double jeopardy when you're prosecuted in the state court first and then federal.
Simi Valley is where all the cops live.
Correct. And they had done a motion to change venue out of L.A., and it was granted, and they were sent to Simi Valley, and all 4 were acquitted. Because of the public outcry, the Department of Justice came in and then prosecuted. Only 2, as I remember, Gary, 2 out of the 4 were convicted in federal court, as I remember. And there's a famous story about a lawyer, and he's still alive, so I won't say his name, but one of the defense lawyers was sitting at the counsel table, and he was talking to his co-counsel, and they were in federal court during that trial, and the guy, my friend, said to his co-counsel, "I've really got to go to the bathroom. We've been going for like 2 hours, and I need to go, relieve myself." And the co-counsel said something like, "Well, I don't have to go. Why do you have to go?" And he said, "Well, you're like a federal judge. You've got a strong bladder and a weak mind." My friend did not realize that the microphone at the table went straight into chambers. And
wow.
The judge heard that, "You're like a federal judge, strong bladder, weak mind," and came barreling out. Anyway, I think 2 out of the 4 were
correct.
Stacy Kuhn, and who was the other?
The 2 that were
convicted.
I unfortunately only remember Kuhn.
Officer Lawrence Powell and Sergeant Stacy Kuhn. They were subsequently sentenced to 30 months in prison.
And then the U.S. Supreme Court dealt with Kuhn, and that was a U.S. Supreme Court case. I'm trying to remember the proposition. I think it had something to do with sentencing.
It was incredible that somebody filmed that from their porch because that was 1992.
Right, and it was a fairly
late night,
91.
kind of a 91 and kind of a dicey neighborhood. It's just amazing that someone walked out with a camcorder back in 91. I mean,
well, the camcorders, telephones with cameras on them, videos has really changed a lot of stuff, not just in the U.S. I mean, take a look at the Arab Spring and a lot of autocratic countries where you get the Libya. I remember some of the cell phone videos of Muammar Gaddafi getting anally raped till he died, and it's amazing how it's changed stuff.
Jesus, I don't even like to watch a guy take a spill off a skateboard. Forget about that.
You don't want to see it.
Muammar Gaddafi, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
It's
astonishing.
It's intense.
Yeah, it is intense. But, a guy like that, I'm not going to say anybody deserves it, but, if Erdogan went that way, you wouldn't see me shed a tear.
There's a study that suggests that the cop body cams actually decrease the amount of complaints from the public.
This is something that it's funny you mentioned that because I've always thought if you've got nothing to be afraid of,
right,
and you should always want those things on because inevitably, and I know this just anecdotally, with it, clients will tell me something. They'll come in and they'll tell me a story. Say, okay. Then it turns out, I remember one in particular. Client told me what happened at a gas station in the Valley, right? And swore to me. And I cross-examined the guy. He swore to me, but I thought it was hinky. Anyway, I finally get the videotape from the gas station. And the client had completely lied to me. Just completely lied. He had switched seats in the driving. And it was like, why did the guy, and they didn't miss a beat. The client's thing was, well, I wanted somebody who'd fight for me. Really? You're just going to lie to me?
Well, you got to look at this way. If you're righteous, you have nothing to fear. I wish I had a body cam recorder for every argument I've ever been in with a woman.
Do you know what my line is?
How much would you like that?
You say body cam. I always say, I swear to God, I've had this conversation. I swear to God, I'm going to have a court reporter just follow me around. I want a court reporter for what the conversation was. Well, read it back. Would you go back to December 13th? I want to know what that conversation was because I remember it vividly, and you're clearly on LSD.
Well, there's a lot of composing going on, but it is interesting because I always factor in the ability and the strengths of people I speak to when I'm arguing with them about a subject. For instance, there's a guy I know named Kevin Hench. As a matter of fact, Gary, if you find the Adam tries out for the Hawthorne SWAT team man show bit, which we've probably talked about a time or two, but Mark would probably get a kick out of it.
I would, especially given the fact that maybe Gary can also find Leon Rosby with Hawthorne SWAT team, which the case I actually had to try years ago where they ended up shooting his poor dog and then prosecuting him for felonies.
Well, I was attacked by the Hawthorne SWAT team dog, attacked German Shepherd, by the way, in this thing.
How are we living these parallel lives we didn't know about this?
But now, Kevin Hench is a photographic memory, and I know because he went and did this bit with me, 20 years ago, and he still remembers all the officers' names. So when he says something like, oh, here's what I heard, or here's how I remember it, I always defer to him. I always go, because you have that kind of mind. You have that kind of mind. I have somewhat that kind of mind. So we should
you have an incredible recall of facts and stories that we've talked about. I mean, it's crazy.
So when you're arguing with me over what was said or what wasn't said, you should factor that in as I factor it in with Kevin Hench. That's all I'm saying is I always it's an interesting thing, and any smart person will do this. I'm always calibrating the person I'm talking to and then deciding, well, how hard should you push back against this, considering that person is at this level and an IQ, and they made a statement that went this way or that way. So for me, it's a big factor. For many, it is not. This is me trying out for the Hawthorne SWAT team.
This is amazing. And Gary, you're going to find Leon Rosby's video as well, and Hawthorne?
We're working on it, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. They're just back to back. Is that you right there, Adam?
20 years ago.
Wow.
Hi there, I'm Adam. I'm looking to make the SWAT team. I'd like to take down some perps, you know what I mean? I'd like to hit the streets, roll with you guys. I think I got what it takes.
Think you can cut the mustard?
Well, I can cut the cheese. My girlfriend will attest to that.
Okay, well, let's see what you got and let's get you suited up.
All right, let's do it.
Go in there.
They actually let you into the locker room?
Hey, you can turn around.
You ready now?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Oh, where they let me everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I like to do that sort of bad boy player thing where I hold it sideways and start yelling, calling everyone bitch.
You do that too.
Ready, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Now halt! Halt! Wait, that comes first?
Yeah, that usually comes first, yeah.
It's like a no-knock.
I'll straighten that out on the street. Let me tell you something. I don't play by the book. I play by this pamphlet. It has all the stuff the book has in it, but it's smaller. It's an easier read.
Wow. I shouldn't have shotgun that had slugs in it.
Wow.
Any questions? I didn't think so. Now, seriously, did you have any questions?
Not at all.
Shot a melon.
This is an M26 air taser.
I got tased.
Who's that?
It's an electrical stun gun.
He's
Shoots out 50,000 volts at 26 watts of electricity.
Right. This is what we shoot the guys that are hopped up on PCP with?
Exactly.
All right.
What's going to happen now is I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to give you probably
They put the electrodes
Adam,
on my
what I'd like you to do
feet.
is focus and try to take a step towards me.
All right.
He zapped me, man. It's a real stun gun with the wires on it.
Oh, my God.
That sucked. Just being a criminal sucks. I like shooting people much better. Top of the world, Ma! Top of the world! I think I got him that time.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. The one I got on her shoulder would have probably cleared her shoulder and probably caught him.
The woman is shot. The hostage is shot.
That's my plan.
You killed the hostage?
I don't want him to think I'm shooting at the perp. My plan is I'm shooting at the hostage, but the bullet's passing through.
All right. We got it. That's hanging off the side.
Hey, wait,
of
you were like ahead of your time. That's kind of like the Cranberry commercial on the skateboard.
Yeah. Oh, wait, play that again. It made me laugh. I think we got a kid.
Wait, that kid was what?
Oh, we can't find
did he flip you?
Yeah. And then I got taken down by the dog, and
Wow.
Spent the whole day in Hawthorne.
Wow.
And they let me fire every gun they had.
What was that last one? An AK?
AR maybe.
Yeah.
I don't or a tech or something. It was a small machine gun, but I was actually pretty good with it because the joke was they had the hostage and they had the perp behind him, and it was about 40, 50 feet away, and I got every single one of those bullets into the hostage.
Wow.
Which I knew for comedic effect would be a much stronger.
Well, you did pretty good with the melon. How big was that melon?
They have a shotgun that has a slug in it that has a round that is just a huge ball bearing.
Okay.
Just a big round ball bearing. And that thing has crazy kick on it, and it'll like go through the side of an engine block.
Wow.
And that's what I was firing at the melon.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
What's your Hawthorne PD
Well,
story?
I don't know if Gary found it, but here you go. So, by the way, this is before Ferguson, before any of this stuff. I forget what year it was. Gary will find it. But my client, Leon Rosby, sees the Hawthorne PD with their SWAT mobile going into a house, and he stops and he starts filming it. Mm-hmm. And yelling, how come there's no blacks on your police force? Okay, because there's a bunch of white guys who are barreling down. Now, poor Leon has got his dog in the car and the windows down. Mm-hmm. The dog, they then are the cops come over and they're going to place Leon under arrest for exposing them or filming them or something, which, by the way, later spurred I think a law that said you can't arrest somebody for this. But you'll see what happens right now. It's awful. Gary.
Dog out. Dog. I'll let the dog out. Let the dog out now. Oh, shit, dog. The dog. Like he's trying to jump out, too. Look. Jump out. Let it jump out. Oh, shit. Hey, watch it. Watch it. Hey, that dog. Hey, that dog. Get back. Get back. You don't miss.
dogs attack or dogs barking at the officer.
Dogs barking. Cop. Boom. Boom.
I don't know why there's a weird. So they just executed.
They
a dog.
executed the dog. Mind you know what happened. So Leon is arrested, I think, for a misdemeanor, 148, interfering or obstructing. Mind you, they kill his dog. All they had to do, they're putting him under arrest. All they had to do was say, hold on, take the handcuffs off, put your dog back in the car. Of course they don't do that.
The cop did a kind of a move where he went up to the dog a couple of times, which he kind of went to the dog. I don't get why he walked toward the dog.
So that hits the internet. Okay, mind you, he's been given a citation. It hits the internet. Literally, the website for Hawthorne goes down. The officer goes into hiding. So the DA's office, in their infinite wisdom, decides to file 9 felony counts against Leon. Dissuading a witness. Blah, 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 blah. I go to a preliminary hearing on this case, and I'm losing my mind. I can't even believe what a bunch of crap it is. We finally get a couple of counts dismissed. I had to actually go to jury trial to get him acquitted on this case, all because they wanted to vindicate the cops who executed the dog. Isn't that just insanity?
Well, I would say it would be, but not hearing all the stories we've told over the years. All right, Gary, do you know what year that was? Sorry, we're doing live shows. Yeah. I'll give a plug. November 20th and 21st, West Palm Beach, baby.
I have one question. November 21st. Why is it question marks?
It's been unclear yet. Last time when we were in, the question marks are whether or not you're going to guest on the live Adam Carolla show. We sort of made that call in Salt Lake last time. I've been trying to get.
Do you remember that when August said you're coming back here in a couple hours, and I said I am, and he says yeah.
I remember that. I remember more fondly the 2 days in advance where he was declaring that you would be joining us, and we were all looking at each other sideways like, that'd be fun, but have you talked to him about that? So that's why there's question marks. I've asked and trying to get clarity, but we'd, I guess, love to have you.
Okay. Well, last time was fun.
It was fun.
But it would have been more fun if it was the later show and you could have drank.
All right, well, we'll do it. Oh, no, the later show I do stand up. All right, early show, I'll drink a little bit, sober up for the late show.
Okay.
First show, 2013 was the Hawthorne dog shooting. All right, live ACS Friday, Saturday, 20th, 21st, and then also a matinee, Reasonable Doubt. That'll be on the 21st. That'll be Saturday, probably about 4 o'clock. And then stand-up shows after that. You can go to AdamCarolla.com for all the stuff you need and subscribe to our YouTube channel and see all the stand-up and everything there. What do you got, Mark?
I'm not going to promote anything except today. I think I'm just going to say to all the Armenians in the diaspora, and most importantly to all the Armos fighting on the front lines in Artsakh to try to repel Azerbaijani and Turkish aggression, more power to you. Stand with Artsakh.
So, until next time, Adam Carolla for Mark Garriga saying Mahala.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.